Well, the 2025 season is over. Before the playoffs started, we had the big question: can the SEC get back on top and win the national championship again? I think we all know by now that they didn't even come close to doing that. Well, they did, but they didn't. All right, let's just keep it very simple. So, anyways, like I promised, we're gonna go through all 5 teams that made the field and see how they did. They had 5 teams make the field. I did not win one. The very first playoff game was an SEC versus SEC matchup. So the SEC was at least guaranteed to win one game in here. And we had Alabama against Oklahoma. A lot of people would probably watch this game. Well, not only because it was the only playoff game on at the time, but also because everybody said Alabama didn't deserve to be there. And the way this game started off, yeah, those people were right. Oklahoma had a 17-0 lead. I mean, it looked like this game was already over. It really did. I mean, I know, obviously, I was watching it, but yeah, this game looked like it was over in the second quarter. It legitimately looked like Oklahoma was about to win this game like 59-0. But Alabama managed to get some momentum back. They managed to finally drive down the field and managed to get a touchdown on 4th down. And after that, Oklahoma went 3 and out, and then the punter drops the ball. I mean, he just flat out dropped it. Alabama takes over. They manage to get a field goal out of it. And then there's just one more drive for Oklahoma. Oklahoma's like, okay, maybe we can get a touchdown, get some momentum. And there's a pick 6. And before you know it, Alabama has came back to tie the game. It was literally just like 25 minutes ago in real time. Oklahoma had a 17-0 lead and was cruising. And in a blink of an eye, that lead was gone. It just vanished. By the way, Xavier Brown is like, I think everybody will know, don't throw towards this man like in like the 2-minute situation. Tennessee learned the hard way, and Oklahoma learned the hard way. So any advice for 2026, don't do that. Don't do that. So anyway, second half comes around. Both teams go 3 and out before Alabama drives down the field and scores a touchdown. And now we're just wondering what's going on. What happened to Oklahoma? Oklahoma was dominant. They're putting pressure on Ty. Their offense is rolling. Now their offense can't do anything. And their defense, they're still getting pressure on Ty, but now Alabama's actually moved down the field. Alabama adds another field goal. And all of a sudden, they're up by 10 before, 50 Cent made a random cameo appearance, and then Oklahoma scored like 2 plays later. But what he didn't know, Alabama really likes the song that he sung, and they kind of took that to heart, and they managed to eventually finish off the game, pull off a 17-point comeback, and punch their ticket to the quarterfinal. So I got to be honest. Watching this game, I pretty much thought it was over. I really did. I didn't think Alabama had any chance of coming back. Their offense had just been an absolute just shambles, really, since the South Carolina game. The Tennessee game was the last game where they truly felt like they were actually, decent. And, Alabama, it doesn't help. They don't have a run game. They actually managed to pop off a 20-plus yard run. That's and against Oklahoma's defense of all defenses, which they did kind of pop one off that in the regular season matchup where they lost. But you go look at this Oklahoma. Made the playoffs again, but once again, you leave without winning a playoff game. In fact, it's the second time in a playoff game you've blown a 3-score lead. You guys remember the Rose Bowl against Georgia? Feels like you had the game there. What happened there? What happened here? But for Oklahoma, I don't think all things are doom and gloom. Yeah, it sucks for them because it's like we beat Alabama once. We were up 17-0. I mean, we basically had them dead in the water. What happened? We don't know. Great ways we don't know. But Oklahoma, John Mateer is coming back for next season. I think it's very obvious that, yes, it might have been against terrible competition at the beginning of the year, but at least he did look like a Heisman caliber quarterback. He was the Heisman front runner early in the season at one point before he suffered his hand injury against Auburn. If Mateer could come back in that form, I don't think there's any reason to think he can't win the Heisman next year. Sategna's coming back. You're getting a couple of weapons in the transfer portal, one of those being Parker Livingstone from Texas. That makes the Red River rivalry a lot more interesting for next year. But for Oklahoma, like I said, offense, hopefully, Mateer will actually be fully healthy and actually, be able to live up to his potential. And since Venables is still here, I don't think there's anything to worry about on the defense. I'm not worried about Oklahoma for next year. Probably not going to be everybody's pick to make the playoff team, but if things can go well, if their defense can play on the same level as it did this year or somewhere relatively close, and if the offense can figure it out, there's no reason to think Oklahoma can't be another surprise playoff team in 2026. So the first big Saturday of the playoffs featured the next SEC game. Texas A&M made the playoffs and 11-1, fell just short of the SEC championship game, fell from the 3 seed to the 7 seed, but still got a home game, and they get to take on Miami, the ACC's representative, even though they didn't even make the ACC championship game. And people were also watching them under a microscope because they got in over Notre Dame. That's the whole thing about this Notre Dame, that, da-da-da-da-da. But anyways, we're not here to talk about Notre Dame. This game, I didn't actually get to watch this game, mainly just because of the fact I was actually driving to go see my friend. So I was listening to it, but I went through some back roads and there's no phone signal, so obviously, I didn't get to hear it. I wasn't watching it. I promise it was safe driving. But, this was a defensive slugfest. There was just no offense to be found, except for Miami in the last minute when Malachi Tony ran in that touchdown. But Mark Fletcher showed up for them, too. For A&M, it's like, what happened? Your offense must be the strength of the team. You mustered 3 points. Don't even get me started about the special teams. We don't have that much to say about this game as I think we do Alabama and Oklahoma, but it's like, man, special teams this game for both sides was horrendous. What is it? I think both teams missed multiple kicks. I think Miami missed 3, but at the end of the day, Miami did enough to pull it a 10-3 win, and A&M had a chance to tie the game late, but Marcel Reed threw an interception in the end zone, and A&M was a one-and-done in their first playoff appearance. So, for A&M, the innings sucked. You lost your last 2 games. 2 games that really matter the most. Still went 11-2, and there's still plenty to build off of. Marcel Reed will be back next year. You still have, I'm trying to remember who it is. Who is it they still have? I think it's Mario Craver because Concepcion declared for the track. You're bringing Isaiah Horton from Alabama. That's not bad. And A&M just, they're one of the Texas schools, so they can bring in a bunch of transfers. I haven't seen all their portal, additions, but I have reason to think that A&M will be pretty decent next year and probably be a top 10 team in the preseason poll. For Miami, well, it's not like they're going to go all the way to the national championship, right? Next up was Ole Miss against Tulane. Ole Miss's first game with Pete Golding as head coach since Lane Kiffin spurred them to go to LSU. And, it was the SEC versus a group of 5 game. It really wasn't all that interesting. Tulane was able to move the ball in Ole Miss, but they just could not score on them, and Ole Miss managed to do exactly what they needed to do. That's really about the only thing to say about this one is that this game, for what it was, I guess it was okay, but figuring Ole Miss had stomped them in the regular season earlier, this isn't that much of a surprise. Moving on. So with that, the quarterfinal is now off and ready to get running. Oklahoma and A&M were the only 2 that didn't manage to make it, though one of Oklahoma and Alabama wasn't going to make it regardless, having to play each other. So now it was down to just 3 SEC teams left. Ole Miss and Georgia would get a rematch against each other in the Sugar Bowl, while Alabama had the opportunity to go to the Rose Bowl and take on the top-seeded Indiana Hoosiers, the new budding power in college football. The game was said to be a very anticipated matchup. Basically the common, the standard, the team that everybody thinks of when they think of winning in college football against the new team that literally came out of nowhere. Literally, just how did he do it? How did Curt Cignetti do it? How did he do it, man? We're all going to be asking that question. He's just going to look at us very awkwardly and just say he's a winner and to Google him. But this was it. Is Indiana really here? Yeah, they beat Ohio State in the Big Ten championship game, but there are people still doubting Indiana. But, maybe if they beat Alabama, people will take them seriously. Or, a lot of people, I think a lot of them did expect Alabama to win this. It's like Alabama has more talent. Should beat Indiana in the ground. And people are like, well, Indiana's here. Alabama's not that good. So how exactly did the game go? Well, one side, it was phenomenal. For the other side, it was a disaster. The first quarter, the game was actually very competitive, but after Fernando Mendoza threw the touchdown pass to Charlie Becker, the game was pretty much over at that point because it was just Indiana the rest of the way. Alabama could not get the ball down the field on Indiana at all, and the defense, after starting out great, had no answers. Indiana beat Alabama the exact same way Alabama used to beat people under Saban, by basically being more physical than them. Indiana looked like an old vintage, 2010s Alabama championship team by basically just, beating you with the line of scrimmage and just running the ball down your throat. That's exactly what happened here. The one time Alabama had a drive actually got a drive going. Ty Simpson fumbled and wound up getting his ribs cracked on that drive. I mean, geez. And it sucks. It really sucks for Alabama because it's like Ty Simpson comes out for the second half, has one drive left, and then he's pulled because of the injury. You know, I don't like how some people said it to make it seem like he got benched for performance. He did not get benched by performance. I mean, the only good thing that Austin Mack did better than Ty Simpson really right there was probably that first drive where Alabama got the 3 points on a field goal. The only points they'd score in the game, which, you know, that makes Austin Mack look at least a little decent for him competing for the job next year since Ty Simpson's off to the NFL. For Indiana, if people didn't believe they were legit, you know, handing Alabama their worst bowl loss in school history might wake some people up. You know, give all the credit in the world to Indiana because they absolutely took Alabama to the woodshed. I mean, this thing got ugly. You're just like, what is going on here? Imagine telling somebody 2 years ago in 2023, or I guess 3 years ago in 2023, that Indiana was going to be undefeated and in the Rose Bowl and would beat Alabama by 35 points. Nobody would believe you. They would immediately send you to the nut house. But guess what? That's the new era of college football we're in. For Alabama, they lost a lot of starters on that defense, mainly being out of eligibility going to the draft. They had a lot of people leaving the portal, but most of that kind of just was depth problems. But one thing to know for Alabama, this team is going to be pretty young next year. They're bringing back almost their entire starting secondary, which would be the strength of the team. But that front seven, they got some interesting pieces in the transfer portal, but they're young. Inexperienced. Alabama has talent, and on both sides, Ryan Williams will be back. Ladzier Brooks will be back. You know, she'll have most of your running back room plus 5-star EJ Crowell will be coming in, but I don't expect him to start off the bat. Obviously, a new quarterback. Will it be Austin Mack or will it be the 5-star quarterback Keelan Russell that I think most Alabama fans really want to see next year? It's going to be a very interesting 2026 for Alabama, especially one of the things that DeBoer knows he had to fix on, the trenches, both sides. I mean, Alabama basically just completely blew up their offensive line room, and they brought in some very interesting guys, but most of them do not have that much experience. This is going to be a year where I think we truly figure out whether DeBoer is the right coach for Alabama moving forward. If he can get a young Alabama team into contention and get them back to the playoffs, I think he's Alabama's guy. If Alabama just absolutely shits the bed and folds, DeBoer might be looking to be working somewhere else in 2027, maybe even sooner than that. But for Alabama, you know, all the fans are doom and gloom. I already made a video about that. And not a lot of people are going to have a lot of confidence in them next year. It's up to them to embrace the underdog mentality that they said they had been embracing and put it to the test, because this team is going to be severely doubted in 2026. Sorry, that was a burp. You know, before we move on, you know, I know Alabama truly got stomped in the ground, but I think, you know, give some props to Ty Simpson, man. The dude that basically put the entire offense on his back, because Alabama's run game was non-existent really all year, maybe aside from the Eastern Illinois game. But, I mean, obviously that doesn't count, but it's just like, man, everything that he did for this team as well as the offense could do with no run game, I give all the props in the world to Ty Simpson. He was definitely the MVP on offense. This man, I wish him the best going forward. You know, it really does suck the way it ended for him, where he had to be pulled because of some cracked ribs. But give all the props in the world to Ty Simpson. Everybody that doubted Alabama, you know, he made sure to take note of that. I don't even know what I'm talking about at this part. But I want to definitely just give a quick shout out to Ty Simpson, man. Thank you for making this year like enjoyable to watch when it wasn't stressful. And we wish, me and every other Alabama fan wish you the best of luck going on into the NFL, man. All right, let's move on. The Sugar Bowl. Georgia's back in the Sugar Bowl after last year being with a then kind of on-the-spot Gunnar Stockton when Carson Beck had hurt his arm. And it's against Ole Miss. Ole Miss is hoping that, you know, the whole rematch thing coming through fruition, at least in the SEC-wise. Alabama beat Oklahoma in the rematch, and then Georgia beat Alabama in the rematch in the SEC championship game. The game started out pretty well for Ole Miss. I didn't actually watch the game, but I did keep up with it. Where Ole Miss was up 21-12 at halftime. But unfortunately, Georgia did what they did mostly, and they fought back. Wound up taking a 34-24 lead before Ole Miss most specifically Trinidad Chambliss, decided to absolutely just lock in and have what, I guess they would call a Heisman moment, though he wasn't even invited to the Heisman ceremony, and decided to lead crazy performance in the fourth quarter, and Ole Miss took care of business and won the game 39-34. I don't really know what Georgia was thinking on that last play, but what do you say about Georgia, huh? What do you say about Georgia? That's 2 years in a row that they've won the SEC, made the Sugar Bowl, and they lost. At least they put up a better fight this year, but it's like, man, what happened? This feels kind of weird. It's like, is Georgia stagnating? No, of course not. This will obviously be one of the favorites to win the national championship next year. They'll be the favorites to win the SEC, if not the second favorite, probably behind Texas. And they're going to bring back a lot of talent for next year. I think this year was another weird year for Georgia because it got off to a slow start on defense. They eventually figured it out. They had a very young offensive line, and they were kind of banged up. I think if these guys can take the next step, there's no reason to think that Georgia's literally not going to be right back here next season. In fact, I think it'd be shocking to a lot of people if they're not. But anyways, Ole Miss is now the lone SEC team standing, and they are 1 win away from making it to the national championship, all without Lane Kiffin. Pete Golding has come in, he's been 2-0, won a home playoff game, and then took them into New Orleans and beat Georgia after blowing a 9-point lead and coming back from a 10-point deficit. And it's up against Miami, who shockingly upset Ohio State. It felt like this was a big moment for Ole Miss. Finally, are they going to break through and win a championship? And are they going to do it the same year that their head coach basically left them at the altar? Game started out at least relatively slow. First quarter just had Miami hitting a field goal before they kind of traded back a little bit. Miami decided to take a 17-13 lead into the half. Third quarter was about the same as the first here. This time Ole Miss got a field goal. It was the fourth quarter where things really got going for this one. After Ole Miss cut it to a 1-point game, Miami managed to basically take it down the field, scored touchdown to go back up again by 8 points. But Ole Miss was not going to give up that easy. Pass interference penalty helped them manage to go down the field and scored a 24-yard touchdown with 3 minutes left. Went for 2, tied the game. Only for Carson Beck, of all people, to have his moment, took Miami down the field and scored the game-winning 3-yard touchdown with, 18 seconds left to knock Ole Miss in the SEC out of the playoffs and punch their ticket to the national championship game, where they would eventually fall short because Carson Beck would have his Carson Beck moment and throw a game-losing interception at the very end. So, yeah, congratulations to Indiana. It's absolutely insane that to even a couple of years ago to think that Indiana would even be in this situation. 16-0, the Heisman Trophy winner, ran the gauntlet, and are standing tall at the end of the day. You give all the props in the world to Indiana because these guys have 100% earned it. I mean, just wow. Just wow. I mean, that's really all I got to say about it is just, congratulations, Indiana. I don't doubt that for a second. Indiana is here. And I don't think this is going to be the last time we see them as long as Curt Cignetti's at Indiana. But the Big Ten, I would say, at least at the moment, has definitely taken over as the power of college football. I mean, they've literally won the last 3 national championships, and the SEC was terrible this bowl season. So they've got work to do. Who's going to be in the field next year? Well, we're just going to have to see. I don't even know if I'm going to make any more football videos. I said I was just going to make Sonic videos and gaming videos. But look at this. This is the 4th football video I've already made on the channel. I mean, I'm actually kind of surprised I'm doing this. I'm not going to lie. But I had a handful of people watch them. I was thinking about making a series. But, I'm not going to do all this work for stuff that, people probably aren't going to watch. Actually, I've had people watch my Sonic Riders video. I actually had one up before. But maybe some more people watch it, maybe I'll be more tempted to, but I don't know if that's going to be the case. But another college football season is in the books. It was another, great year for some teams, especially if you're Indiana. For some teams, it was just disaster. And it's just, on to 2026, a lot of new coaches and a lot of new places. I think next season is going to be very, very interesting and we got a long wait until then. This transfer portal mess seems to have thinned out. So spring practices, the not televised, whatever you want to call them, spring games, those don't exist anymore. And then alas, before we know it, it'll be week 1 again. Time to grill out, tailgate, crack open a cold one, and get ready to watch our favorite college football teams. And you want to know something, regardless of what it is? I can't wait.